All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Again, my name is Giann, and this is.
I'm Calvin, and today we will be talking about parrots and how they are in the pet trade. We'll have a short talk from the wildlife officer from the forest department. We'll go over some human and wildlife conflicts we have with parrots and Psittacosis as the zoonosis topic for today, which will be presented by Dr. Isabel in a short video.
That is right. So, if you own a parrot looking to own one, or if you are interested, not that we're encouraging, but please do view this is for you if you are interested in parrots and are curious as to the situation with that. We're getting first-hand information from the authorities, which is the forest department. So this should be a talk for you, and we do hope you enjoyed. So we'll just ask you to share if you can. If, um, Tag your friends, comment, and we will have some quiz questions which you will be able to win small tokens from here at the clinic. So please do participate, comment, and answer the quiz questions since well they should be easy for you all, but we'll see them in just a bit. Um, Remember, you can always donate um, at this link. You can download with the QR code here, and all the proceed goes to taking care of the impaired animal and wildlife in Belize. Right? We're also asking if you are willing and if you are interested in the wildlife ambassador program. It is open for joining, and we are gathering community ambassadors and the likes. All right, so join the Wildlife Ambassador Program. Send us an email for more if you want to find out more on the program.
Yes, that's right. And if you are not, well, if you're not able to donate monetarily, we also take donations of towels, um, clinic supplies like syringes, needles, gloves, masks, and anything that will help animals that we get into the clinic, right? So without um, further ado, here's the presentation on psittacosis, which is being presented by Dr. Isabel in this short video.
Hello, thank you for joining and welcome to another presentation on a One Health topic and important zoonosis. Today, we're going to talk about parrot fever, one of the disease's names, maybe a slight misnomer, but that's one of the common names. And yeah, why is it in the air? Because that's the main transmission that we know about. So this entire series is to talk to you a bit about One Health, how our health is connected, and how actually protecting animal health ultimately will protect our own human health. So same as the other presentations, we will briefly introduce the causing agent. How common is this disease? What does it look like in animals? What does it look like in humans? How do we get it? How do we know we have it? Most importantly, how can we prevent it and avoid getting this disease? A couple words on treatment and a few resources listed at the end. To repeat, One Health is the concept that human health as well as animal health and environmental health are connected, and ultimately by protecting one, we protect all. One of the many issues under the One Health concept are zoonotic diseases, which are diseases shared between animals and people. So this does not just mean that we people can get diseases from animals, but also we people give animals diseases as well. Remember that more than 50% of the infectious diseases that we humans get are in fact zoonotic and can spread between us and animals. So that brings me to today's zoonosis, being psittacosis. The name of the causing agent is Chlamydia psittaci, which is a bacterium. It's gram-negative and intracellular, and the main hosts are birds. Humans obviously can also be affected, but also potentially other species. A common name for this disease in humans is psittacosis, but also parrot disease or parrot fever, or also ornithosis, to recognize that this is not just contracted from parrots, but many species of birds can be affected by this bacterium. How common is it? The best answer is to say we don't really know how common it truly is, because it is underdiagnosed due to the difficulty in diagnosis. But it suffices to say that this disease is rare. It was, however, already described in humans in 1879, which is quite early for a zoonotic bacterial disease to be described. There was an outbreak that's also published in the Journal of Avian Medicine, I believe, that took place in 1929, 1930, and went all around the world. But overall, reported per year in the United States are usually fewer than 10 cases per year. However, in 2018, there was a multi-state psittacosis outbreak in poultry workers, and there were over 10 cases associated with this one outbreak. And I just found a publication about an outbreak at a veterinary school where there were, I believe, 6 infected students. And it was in that case contact with a placenta of a mare, so an equine host that had this bacterium and transmitted it to humans. So while it is known as the parrot disease, it is not just coming from parrots. So what does it look like in animals? I actually turn this off here. In birds, where we know it, one of the problems is that, similar to COVID, it can be asymptomatic, and these animals can shed the bacterium, meaning they show no signs, yet they carry and spread the bacterium. But when signs are seen, they can be very unspecific with poor appetite. And then, however, more specifically, we see upper respiratory infections. So we may see swelling around the eyes, breathing difficulty, sometimes respiratory discharge. So this was not a case of chlamydiosis. This was a case of upper respiratory infection. But the animals can also show diarrhea. So as you will see with several of these zoonoses that are presented, the symptoms can sometimes be rather unspecific, making it more difficult to detect these diseases. So in humans, there is an incubation period on average from 5 to 14 days. I think the fastest incubation was 3, and the longest described was 45 days before humans started showing symptoms. And then again, it often starts just like the flu with unspecific symptoms, with fever, chills, headache, muscle aches, and mostly dry cough. There are, however, complications in humans that can lead to pneumonia and other serious complications, which lead to hospitalizations and also can lead to death in humans. The CDC states that less than 1% of properly treated patients, however, die. So it is not not a very high mortality. Nonetheless, there is mortality. And this image here came from a recent article in a newspaper in Hong Kong, where a small outbreak led to several diagnosed cases in humans, including one death, because this disease had not been diagnosed, or he had not been treated properly to begin with. So how do we get this? First of all, who's at risk? At risk are bird owners, people who work in poultry plants, veterinarians and lab technicians, as well as farmers, zoo, and people who work in quarantine stations, for example. Generally speaking, the infection is acquired through inhalation, through breathing in dust from droppings or respiratory secretions of infected animals. But it can also be contracted through bites or through what should not be done mouth-to-mouth contact. And as I just mentioned a moment ago, there are other sources possible, like the described source of a mare in this veterinary school with the article link here. How do we know we have it? It's quite difficult, which makes this an important zoonosis to learn about. The diagnosis is difficult. It requires special cultures. It is not a simple culture. Serology, so looking for antibodies in blood samples, also has its challenges to it. And when used on birds, there is very high positivity rates, which does not mean that these birds are in fact sick or spreading. And then there is, of course, PCR, which is the fastest and most reliable diagnosis. Psittacosis is a reportable disease. So how do we avoid it? Of course, we want to prevent. There is no vaccine for psittacosis, but the recommendations are, of course, good hygiene when handling and cleaning birds in cages. When cleaning, it is recommended to wet surfaces before sweeping, for example, to avoid aerosolization and avoid dust with droppings and feathers and the likes in it. It is also recommended to not position cages so that droppings could be spread between cages. Sick animals always have to be isolated from healthy animals and should be treated. Overcrowding should be avoided. And of course, bowls and cages should be cleaned daily. And when cleaning bird or avian areas, masks and gloves should be worn. And ultimately, of course, after handling or cleaning, we should always wash our hands. And that brings us to the end of this presentation. So a repeat, hand hygiene is always important after handling animals and taking sick animals to the vet or getting the vet to see the sick animals to treat their diseases to ultimately protect your health as well. So what can we do about this disease? Treatments, we're not going to list any treatments here, but there are effective antibiotic treatments. Those are not first-line antibiotics, so the disease has to be suspected. This requires a veterinary examination in animals and or a doctor's examination for humans. Most likely or definitely samples will have to be sent off for further testing before the treatment can be confirmed. But in serious illness and suspicion in humans, treatment will be initiated before confirmation of diagnosis. So serious suspicions would be, for example, in humans that had recent contact with birds that fall ill. So here, some of the resources used here, and this concludes today's presentation. I hope you will send us some questions, and thank you very much for your attention.
All right, so there you had the presentation on psittacosis. And since we are just finishing up with that presentation, we'll go right into the first quiz question for today, which is again on psittacosis.
All right, and we hope you learned something new and become aware of these zoonosis that we do tend to like to share. Right, so let's go right into the quiz question, and please comment all the answers that apply on the comment section, and we'll be reviewing them as we go seeing the answers. Right, so Calvin, uh, let's just wait a second till it loads there, and um, hopefully we can get that going for you all. All right, maybe Calvin can just read it out for you guys as we, um, yeah.
Okay, so the first question for today is, how is the bacterium Chlamydia psittaci transmitted? And this question has more than one correct answer, so please comment all the correct answers in the comment section for you to be able to win a small token from the clinic. And the choices are from the fluids of infected birds and dust particles in the bird droppings, from eating an infected chicken, from the droplets, from coughs or sneezes from an infected human, by touching an infected human, from beak to mouth contact with a bird. Right. So those are the options, and again, there are more than one correct. There is more than one correct answer. So comment the letters of the options you believe are correct.
That's right, just the letters, not the entire answer, so that you can be the first one to comment the correct answer for this question.
All right. Next section.
Clear?
Yeah.
All right. So there we have the quiz question number one. I guess we're gonna leave it a while, Calvin, to see if we get all correct answers. And as we speak, we are reviewing the options that you have there. And thank you for commenting. Soon we'll tell you who got the correct answer from those.
And again, donations. We'll be putting up the QR code for donations if you're able to make monetary donations. And again, if you're not able to, then we also take donations of sheets, towels, pillowcases, socks, clinical supplies like syringes, needles, gloves, right? So it doesn't have to be all monetary. Um, Still, all donations go to helping wildlife that we receive here at the clinic.
That is right. So you don't have to have monetary donations if you would still want to donate to the clinic. Then you can still do so if you have old clothes, old socks, sheets. I see we tend to use a lot of what you call it, pillow cases. So you can do contact us if you want to be a part of us helping the wildlife of Belize. All
Or you
right.
can just bring it in here to the clinic and we will receive it thankfully. Right. So now we can move on to the second presentation for today, which is the pet parrots, well, parrots in the pet trees, right?
All right. So we don't have all correct answers as yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll announce it in just a few, but yeah. Let's see what the next presentation is.
All right, so here now we have wildlife law, which is in this presentation concerning parrots and parrots in the pet trees. All right, so For now, we have 9 local species of parrots here in Belize, and we have 1 subspecies which is critically endangered, 2 that are near threatened, and 1 that is considered endangered here in Belize, right? And from the flyer made by FD and BBR, there are the 9 species that we have, 9 species of parrots that we have here in Belize, right? All right. So, like with all wildlife in Belize, all local species of parrots are protected by the Wildlife Protection Act. And like I said, this protects all native species of parrots, and no parrot species should be traded, either bought or sold, right? Especially the yellow-headed parrots, which is the critically endangered subspecies, and the scarlet macaw, which is the species considered endangered here in Belize. And for you to be able to keep a native parrot as a pet here in Belize, an official wildlife permit is necessary for keeping pet parrots, right? And again, the scarlet macaw cannot be kept as pets, sorry, at all.
Unless they import.
Mm. All right. So, international regulations concerning parrots again in the IUCN Red List, which is a list that uses the number of individuals in a species to evaluate how close they are to extinction, right? And the CITES, which is the Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species, which is an international treaty that protects endangered species, um, and controls the trade of endangered species, and that includes plants and animals. So, like we said earlier, the yellow-headed parrot is a subspecies that is listed as critically endangered in the IUCN Red List. And as endangered species, we have the male parrot, or the blue-headed parrot, and olive-throated parakeet, which are endangered, and the scarlet macaw, which is considered endangered here in Belize, but because of its broad range in Mexico and Guatemala and Belize, it is listed as least concern, just like the red-lord parrot, white-capped parrot, white-fronted parrot, yellow-lord parrot, and the brown-hooded parrot, which are listed as least concern in the IUCN Red List. And in the CITES treaty, the trade of the yellow-headed parrot and the scarlet macaw are protected in the Appendix 1, which prohibits any trade between countries of these species except for um, extreme circumstances, yes. Captive bred individuals of these species. And then the other 8 parts are listed in Appendix 2, which the trade is still regulated, but with less leniency. Right. All right. Now, how parrots enter the pet trade, the illegal pet trade. All of the parrots that enter the pet trade are poached from the wild here in Belize. Right. So the parrots are usually poached as chicks from their nests, and then they enter illegally into the pet trade. and a majority of the poached parrot chicks die even before being sold or traded. Um, when poaching occurs in the wild, the trees that the nests are found on are usually chopped down to be able to get to the nest to poach the parrots. And this causes more than just the poaching as a problem, right? And if the living standards of the pet parrots are in poor condition, the parrots do not live very long. And any person that is caught with illegal wildlife should be charged to the fullest extent of the law stipulated in the Wildlife Protection Act. Right? And in the act, the penalty for the first for being caught the first time should be $500 or 1 year in prison or both, and the second time is a penalty of $1,000 and 1 year in prison or both. And in order for you to keep a pet parrot, again, you must have a valid pet permit from the forest department. And after this presentation, we'll show the video from the wildlife officer from the forest department talking a little bit more about the permit process and what you should um, do to be able to get the permit and what you can do if you should be denied the permit in the first instance. Next, the parrots should be healthy and their enclosure should be um, fit for them to be able to live happily and safely and healthy. And then there can only be 2 parrots per house, and one person should have 1 parrot. The owner of that parrot cannot change at all. And if any information should change, like let's say a phone number or an address, or if the parrot dies, these things should be reported to the first department um, to let them know what happened, right? Next. All right, so the effects of poaching these and keeping parrots as pets. Um, so the entire activity of poaching and keeping the parrots as pets have an effect on the species population, obviously, right? Because we are taking them out of the um, out of their natural habitat, right? So in the beginning, at the first instance, cutting down the trees with the nests in them add to deforestation, and they also limit suitable nesting um, holes for future breeding pairs. And there are parrot species that do not reproduce ever again after losing their chicks, right? And keeping or trading new parrots also encourages poachers to go and poach more parrots from the wild. And the parrots that are kept in captivity have a very low um, breeding rate. They cannot breed successfully in captivity, right? And this also takes away from the species gene pool out in the wild. But if in case you would like to reintroduce your pet parrot back into the wild, the Belize Bird Rescue has a program that can assist you with that, right? So you can contact them if you would want to reintroduce your pet parrot back into the wild. And they also have a website that you can go on to get more information about this project, right? And also other projects that they do with parrots. And again, the end goal for all of this is coexistence, right? We want to be able to um, live with live seeing these birds out in the wild, um, flying free. All right. So now that we've been through that, now I will show the video from the and for wildlife officer from First Department.
Or should we quickly just announce the quiz winner before we go there? Or
All right, we could do it.
I think we have two answers from Daniel and Alejandra. And in my feed here, it shows that while both of them were correct, right? A, B, D, F. Sorry, Danielle was the um, first one to answer the question, right? So you have to be as fast as possible in order for you to be the first one there on the comment section answering the first, being the first one to answer the correct uh, answer, right? So thank you very much, both to Daniel and Alejandra. You can contact us, Daniel, as per instructions how to retrieve your small little prize. All right, so thank you very much, and stay tuned. We have more of these coming up from these presentations, and do listen up carefully because we have vital information, and they will be um, asked on the quiz questions. All right, so let's jump into that very informative video from the wildlife officer.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victoria Kowich. I am the wildlife officer for the Forest Department. And today I will be talking to you a little bit about the parrot program, the pet parrot program. That's what we kind of call it. And this program was established some years ago. And in this program, what we basically do is that we receive applications from persons who have parrots in captivity and want to keep them as pets. So you basically fill out the application form that you can get in any of our offices throughout the country. You fill out the form, and then when the offices receive that application form, they will vet it. After they pass through the vetting, meaning that all the information that should be completed is in the form. After that vetting process, then there is an inspection process. During the inspection, the officer goes to your home and sees the parrot. They assess if the parrot is in good healthy conditions, if they have an adequate home, if they have adequate food supply, water supply, and if the cage conditions or the cage is appropriate for the parrot. If you pass that inspection, or if the parrot passes the inspection, then you get a pretty little band in his foot, and you get a copy of your permit. If you do not pass the inspection, then they will give you a green slip with the requirements that you need to fulfill, and a deadline as to when you need to fulfill those guidelines, those requirements, and then they do a second inspection for that date. Normally we give them 2 weeks to a month, so that you fulfill those guidelines, and the guidelines will stipulate whether it's the size of the cage, the addition of perches, food, and so on. So those requirements will be highlighted to you, and you as the owner need to fix those requirements, so that when they do the second inspection, you can then get your license. If you fail to fulfill the requirements, that is when we do confiscation, because again, we need to look at the well-being of the birds and of these parrots. It's not something only for you to have a parrot and not really take care of it. There are guidelines that you need to follow, and if you fail to follow those guidelines, that is when we do confiscation. what I want to highlight also is that if we do the first inspection and we see that the parrot is in really bad condition, then that calls for automatic confiscations. Throughout the years, we've seen parrots that are in really dire conditions. We see parrots that should be very green, and when we see them, they're practically pink. We had a pink parrot, and this comes because what they're being fed, they're not following, they're not getting the dietary supplements that they should, and hence the reason they get different colors. We've seen parrots that have plucked all their feathers, and that is a sign that the bird is losing it and is under a lot of stress, and so that is calls for confiscation. We've seen parrots that walk up and around the porches, up and down, up and down, up and down. Again, those are signs that the parrot is really stressed, and those call for confiscation. So it's not something that we will go to your home on the first inspection and remove your parrot if they are in healthy conditions. Bear in mind, if they are in healthy conditions, and if maybe the only the cage size needs to upgrade and so on, you will remain with your parrot. So please bear with us. It's we have a lot of people to get through, so please bear patience with us. We also request that if you know you submitted an application to the forest department and for whatever reason we have not arrived to your home, please check with the nearest office and maybe fix your and maybe it's your contact info that is no longer valid, or something is no longer valid. And honestly, if you have don't have a parrot anymore and you did submit an application, then call us so that we know that you no longer have a parrot, so we don't have to do these inspections or go to people's homes, because some applications have been submitted for quite a time, and when we're getting to it now, maybe the contact information is no longer valid. Maybe you've moved, or maybe you no longer have a parrot. And if you did submit an application and you no longer have a parrot, then you cannot apply again for a new one or go and get a new parrot. We discourage people from going and buying parrots. We discourage them from removing them from the wild. This registration program are for parrots that are at least 2 years and older. It's not for chicks. If you have parrots that are chicks, then those are immediate confiscation, because you should not have them. And so that is basically what the program deals with.
2 seconds. All right. Now, you've had it there from the forest department. Again, we may not encourage the keeping of pet parrots. There are alternatives, bird species that you can keep, for like the budgies, the imported species from Australia. They are usually sold at the pet stores and at markets. You know, the little blue, white, or light green or pink ones that you see around. They are bred for captivity, so they would be more suitable to keep as pets, right? Now we can move on into the second question for today, which again is based on the wildlife law.
All right, so we hope you listened up carefully to what Ms. Calvin and Ms. Victoria have said. So let's go with the second question, and I hope you guys can comment there and win yourself a small little token from the clinic. So the question is as such: what are the requirements to keep pet parrots in Belize? The first option there, A, says there are no requirements. B, a pet permit is needed. C, must have more than 2 parrots. D, parrots must be healthy. E, parrot wings must be clipped. F, housing is suitable for the size of the parrot. And G, parrot must be kept by the owner named on the permit itself. Right, so comment on the comment sections down below which of these answers are correct or applies to these questions, and then the first one to put the correct answer will receive a small little prize. All right. So we did manage. I'll just leave the quiz question with these people. We did manage to get the link for the um, Captive Parrot license program there on the comments. So we have it pinned there for a while, and please do check out that page in order to get more information. And there is the online permit. Sorry, the online application form there on that Belize Board Rescue site. All right. So thank you for commenting your answers. You still have a bit of time. Send in your answers so that we review them um, as soon as possible.
All right. Well, since we already have the correct answer there by Sadie Hiron, we can go through the answers uh, from now.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Saidi, for commenting there. It is, in fact, B, D, F, and G. And let's just uh, read out those answers to you and which one doesn't apply. Right? There are no requirements. Yes, there are. However, a pet permit is needed. That is B. That is correct. D. Parrots must be in a healthy condition. And we usually recommend to try to get some veterinary care for those parrots as you can. Right. F. Housing is suitable for the size of the parrot. We tend to see a lot of these pet parrot owners with very small little cages, and that is detrimental to the health of the parrot, and it causes a lot of stress to them. All right, and G, the parrots must be kept by the owner name on the permit and no one else, right? So as to avoid any trade or confusion with those parrots. So there's a bit of rules when it comes to those as well. So once again, congrats, Miss Saidi, and thank you for participating. And we hope you're learning something new today on our live show for the day. All right,
Yeah.
Calvin, what's next?
All right. Um, well, everything about NGOs are asking for donations, right? So maybe we could put up the donation QR code again.
You never get enough of that. The animals do need it, and that is how NGOs survive.
And then again, we are inviting you to send us an email to be able to join in the Wildlife Ambassador Program, um, which should be starting very soon.
All right, so just a bit on that. We do have funding to do this program in order to recruit and make this somewhat of an indication on outreach program to train community ambassadors. The main focus is enforcement officers, which are police department, BDF, Coast Guard, and such. However, we do believe that the community plays a critical role on this, and we do invite um, if you're a student, a biology student, an RM student, this is something that could help you, and then at the same time you are being part of this joint effort to decrease human wildlife conflict and decrease illegal wildlife trade in Belize. So this is something that we are launching very soon, and we want to be able to gather people so that we be able to start with the surveys on the initial setup of the program before we start the actual workshops.
Yes, and apart from decreasing human wildlife conflict and illegal wildlife trafficking, we will also be increasing knowledge on One
Awareness.
Health
Yep.
concept, right? The zoonosis that are um, prevalent in our environment. Right.
That is right. That is something we tend to forget. Sometimes we might ignore um, you know, the simple things, but uh, diseases and such is something that is important for us to talk about, and it plays a huge role in being able to not just taking care of the animal's health, but we see the link that it has with our health as well. If we don't take care of the animal health, then our health suffers, and our environment health then goes down.
That's
All
right.
right. So up next, I
Let's see.
believe it's me up next. So next we tend to do a conflict species, talking about human wildlife conflict, and in our post we tend to call it the human parrot conflict. And thankfully, it might not be as much, but just to give a bit of insight as to the common little problems that probably farmers would have with parrots. So we will take parrots as the conflict species of the month. And let's just get a small overview, even though Calvin has already explained about these parrots. We have the order there, Psittacosis, which is the order that includes not just the parrots, but as well as the cockatoos and different birds that are very similar to the parrot. However, the Psittacidae, which is the family, includes more of the true parrots that are within this taxonomical group, right? Specifically, we're looking at the most of them are the Amazonian parrots, meaning they have the genus Amazona. However, we do have, for example, the scarlet macaw, which is genus Ara, that does fall under this family as well, right? Most of them are medium-sized, short-tailed parrots native to South America, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean, except for the macaw, which is a long-tailed parrot, right? The Amazona genus contains about 30 species within that genus. However, 9 species are native to Belize. Specifically, the Amazona are like 6 of them, right? Because we have the scarlet macaw, we have the um, I don't remember if it was the olive-throated that have a different genus, or they still fall under this Psittacidae family, right? And there are 9 of those, as Calvin had already shared, and he also shared on the um, threatened status of these parrots as well. Their lifespan can be, depending on the species, it varies a lot on the species, but um, from the flyer, it says that the least is 25 and the most is 80 years that these birds can live. So some of them do live long lifespans if, they have the proper conditions to survive then. So feeding, they have a blunt tongue and they eat seeds, buds, fruits, and sometimes insects. The ecological role is mainly as seed dispersal and plant regeneration. It's super important when it comes to specific fruits that they eat. They are the major contributors to dispersal and spreading out of those plants. The public health risk, and we always do tend to emphasize on these, is that, well, the whole concept about One Health and zoonosis means the zoonosis means diseases that can be passed on from um, animals to humans, as well as humans to animal. So we always want to give you a section on that and let you know, um, the importance of this when it comes to the health realm and what it has to do. So the public health risk, like Dr. Isabel already mentioned, we have psittacosis, and I do think we got a very informative presentation on that already. But other zoonosis that can be possible would be either flu, West Nile virus, and the feather lice. Um, the conservation status I will skip since Calvin had already gone through that. So when it comes to conflict, the major situations we see ourselves in is parrots flying over a cornfield, or even sometimes eating some of the corn cobs, as well as citrus field and some selective crops that we would have um, mainly around Belize, right? So it's somewhat very simple to try to solve these issues, and we have various recommendations or solutions that you can take to be able to combat these situations. The first one would be exclusion by netting. If you have a very probably delicate crop that you want to protect, you will always have netting in order for you to exclude the birds. They won't be able to get in to those very delicate garden areas, for example, that you might want to protect. Uh, as all birds, they will react to stimulus when it comes to either noise or visual scares. We have the traditional scarecrow that does work, and we do recommend to use that with a what would I call it? A combination of either movement and sound in order for them to you know it for in order for it to be more efficient, right? Using a combination of sound and visual cues would help out and be more efficient to avoid these birds. um, Physical presence, of course, would be something that would help as well. I remember growing up, we used to go to my uncle's farm, and our role was to be out there and basically shout every time we see parrots coming close to the cornfield. So that is something that can be fun, as well as can avoid some of these conflict as well. And um, lastly, there to mention would be what we will call acceptance or tolerance, in that um, basically these birds are just finding what to eat, and they will search and find whatever they find to eat. However, in most cases, they will never wipe out an entire crop. They will never, wipe out an entire current field per se. Even though you might lose a little bit, it will not be that they will eat, acres and acres of cornfield and wipe you clean. No, they're, it's something per se natural, and even more so, some people actually like to see these birds around, and it's something that you can take advantage of seeing, especially if you are in around urban or suburban areas. It would be a nice thing to see these birds coming around. So acceptance and tolerance would be something that uh, could be, or something that you can endorse yourself. Also, plant decoy crops like bitter orange, which are not suitable for human consumption, but they are attractive to parrots. So you can put it probably on the edge or within your crops in order for them to go to those, and then in such avoid your crops or your plantation or cornfields, right? So that is also a good idea to do when it comes to that situation there. And like I mentioned earlier, they will never consume entire crops. And what the last thing to consider there is that they are essential when it comes to plant regeneration, and they can also be enjoyed as ecotourism, and in the future make somewhat of an economic income through that, right? So this is a short resume of power conflict. It's not a huge topic, however, it is something that can be spoken about, and thankfully very simple to combat.
So, if you have any questions.
All right, so if you have any questions on any of the information that we presented on today, you can put them in the comment section, or if you would want to ask something that you don't want shared, you can also email us and we will get back to you as soon as we can.
That is right. We are always open for questions and we're always here, and we do appreciate when people reach out for more information, and we're happy to do that, right? So, message us with your question or email us. We are on social medias, Facebook, Instagram. We are on YouTube, and very soon we will be updating more content there. So we will have that there. And of course, we have our phone numbers that you can use. That is a hotline 24/7. Whenever you see any issues or any emergencies, then call us so that we help you and advise you as to what to do. Right? So that is there for your use, and we hope that it could be useful for you.
Now we can go on to the third question for today to start closing it up. So here is the question, and the question is, which of the following are recommended measures to take with parrot conflict? And again, these questions have more than one correct answer, and the options are exclusion, using netting, noise or visual scare techniques or tactics, you stone them or feed them. You can use alternative crops, usually not consumable by humans but attractive to them. You can accept them or tolerate their presence, and you can also report it to the police. Right,
So,
so
what are your best recommendations? A bit of sarcastic answers there, right? But what do you think, or what from the presentation you think are the best options to follow?
while we wait for someone to give the correct answer, again we could put up that QR code.
Well, actually, I'll leave that screen just so you guys get to read it if you haven't and analyze that. But we'll loop it at the end. If you want to, scan that QR code, that is a code to our PayPal account, so you can do that after the live has ended, right? So again, thank you very much for everyone who views us and get to enjoy of these little short lives. We try to be as informative and relevant as possible when it comes to this, and bring you information that is important to be out there and that you can also enjoy. So, any responses for question number 3? We have none as yet, but we do hope that you can reply there on the comments and have us know which one were the correct options. You want to thank this? We'll just wait to see if anyone answers, but we also just want to thank Miss Victoria from the Forest Department for sending that in. It's very informative, and I know it's relevant to you guys having that first-hand information from the authorities. So that is very good that she managed to send that in for us so that we can share with you guys and learn together. One moment.
All right, so since we have the almost the correct answer.
All right, so we'll leave it quite a couple of seconds more.
Now there we have it, the answer from Lewin Siv, while all the other answers were correct from Mr. Daniel. The reporting them to the police was the sarcastic option that was placed in the options.
Right.
So
So for now, your best bet wouldn't be to report it to the police, but take some of these other measures that we have here. So let's see the answers. There we go.
All right, and the correct answers as answered by Lewin. A, exclusion using netting around crops or trees that the parrots target can be useful in keeping them away and out of the crops. Using noise and visual scare tactics usually work for birds, although a combination of scare, scaring or um, keeping them out, and even using alternative crops that they are more attracted to than the crops that we want to keep for ourselves. And also acceptance and toleration of the parrots as they will not consume an entire crop, right?
That is right. So there we have it. That's the um, last quiz question for the day. And thank you, Lewin. Or we were already wondering where is Lewin. We know Lewin is a um, you know supporter of the clinic. All right. So with that, guys, it's been an hour already, and I think we've had a very successful and informative session for today. And once more, just thank you for tuning in and joining us this afternoon. And we hope that we can keep in touch with most of you guys and work with you all in the future. So,
We will be keeping the QR code for donations up for a bit afterwards for you to maybe take a screenshot, and we will be heading off now.
all right. So, thank you again. And we will announce when the next live will be in a month time. We'll join you once more here on Facebook Live.